Two very disturbing developments have unfolded this week, and as we come to Friday and the last day of the month of June, I believe it is important that we take a look at them. I believe it is important that we all take note of these two things that have happened. The first is that the last man standing at the IEBC, the last woman standing at the IEBC, Irene Cherop Masit, has fled the country. Just to jog your memory, Masit was an IEBC commissioner, one of the famous Cherera 4, who disputed the presidential election results announced by Wafula Chebukati in our elections last August. I will come back to Masit towards the tail end of this video, because first I'd like us to focus on a very unfortunate development. You will remember on June 18th, the brother to Ken Osinde, a former Kenyan ambassador to Germany and chief of staff of the then Deputy President William Samoei Ruto, Tom vanished on the 18th day of June, which was a Sunday, and there has been a spirited effort to find him. That search for him ended yesterday, Thursday, when his son positively identified his remains in Migori, quite far from his home in Nakuru, where he was last seen. And very disturbing and disheartening is that somebody took away Tom's life. He was killed. And obviously, in cases like this one, the people investigating have to be guided, and indeed this is the first thing they look for, something called motive. Why? Because people don't end other people's lives for nothing. There's usually a motive. And Bwana Osinde worked for the National Treasury. So the first question one may need to ask is, could the motive have something to do with where he previously worked? Could he have had some information that caused his demise? Perhaps the most likely place to look for a motive is not at the Treasury, but with his deceased relative, Bwana Ken Osinde. Now, if we can back up a little, the passing on of Bwana Ken Osinde, the brother to Tom, also had a lot of question marks, because it was a sudden death. These days, we have pathologists who specialize on sudden death. And of course, the reason why there's a high demand for this particular service is that in a vast majority of cases, sudden deaths are not normal. There's usually foul play involved. Somebody ended somebody's life. Now, at Ken Osinde's funeral, we were told that he died of internal bleeding, a ruptured vein, because he complained of stomach pains and was rushed to hospital, where he succumbed. Now, there are those wise old men in Africa who will tell you that death as a result of internal bleeding sio kifo ya Mungu. What do they mean? Well, we know that internal bleeding is mostly caused by external factors, blunt force trauma, being hit, the external part of the body being hit, and causing you such serious problems that internal bleeding occurs. And of course, the other reason is poison. Other experts will tell you that there's some diseases mostly found in Africa, which I find super fascinating, that particular phrase, mostly found in Africa, which could also cause internal bleeding. Lakini ile shida iko hapo, ukiangalia hiyo list ya magonjwa, nyingi zao ni zile za kuundwa na mtu mahali in a lab, okay, in this evil world we live in. Let me just leave it at that. And therefore there are many people who believe that the passing on of Ken Osinde was not through natural causes. Yeah, there are many Kenyans who believe that. And given the information that I've just given you, it is understandable. We would know where these people are coming from, wouldn't we? And therefore one would be forgiven for speculating that whatever happened to Tom, whatever the motive was, may have had something to do with his late brother, Ken. Now, in my opinion, the most disturbing issue about this Tom Osinde manenos is that it clearly appears that those who were involved in his killing were professionals. Okay? That is what is really disturbing as far as I'm concerned. How do I know they were professionals? Simply put, only professionals would know, would have the following piece of information. Usually, in this kind of investigations, the scene of crime is extremely important. Indeed, these days, we have various specialists in CSI, crime scene investigation, because it has been proven over time that the particular scene of the crime usually carries a lot of evidence. Even when somebody makes spirited effort to destroy evidence, there are many cases where murderers have been convicted because they forgot one small thing. Bottom line, it is very difficult, virtually impossible, to clean up a crime scene so well that nobody will be able to find anything linking that scene to the suspect. And so what do professionals usually do? They hide, they mask, they ensure that nobody will ever be able to guess where the scene of the crime, the place where the person was killed, is. And they do this by dumping the remains as far away as possible from the scene of the crime, so that anybody coming to investigate already has a huge problem in front of them. They can't find the crime scene. And therefore chances of getting to the bottom of it are very limited, almost nil. The remains of the late Tom were found at River Kuja, which is on the border of Migori County and Kisii County. Now that is very far away from his home in Nakuru, well over 200 kilometers, because from Nakuru, if you're going that direction, you need to go to Molo, Kericho, Nyamira, Kisii, and then beyond. It's very far. And there's also something else about a river and running water. It wipes out any other remaining DNA evidence that may be on the body. Bottom line, it is easy to conclude that this was done by professionals. Watu wakubwa, watu wazito. And of course you'll be aware that there are many other instances of unsolved murders to this day in the country called Kenya, where the remains have been found in a river. But having said all that, I am still encouraged, because we're in the season of exposure. Because we're in the season of judgment, judgment comes with exposure. And therefore I'm confident that I would not be out of order to expect some sort of miracle that will reveal the real killers of the late Tom Osinde. I really feel for the family. Losing two sons is not easy. My deep and sincere condolences to them. And I pray that Almighty God will give them comfort during this very difficult time. On to Irene Masit, as I promised. Now, we in the country called Kenya really need to sort out our elections, and especially our presidential elections. And this is very, very urgent, because it is very disheartening, but also very instructive, that Irene Masit is not the first IEBC official, commissioner, to flee the country because they fear for their lives. You will remember in 2017, we had a brave lady called Rosalyn Akombe. By the way, why is it always women? Are the men of Kenya not brave enough these days? Food for thought. And so one cannot help but ask, why do we have elections where it is necessary for IEBC commissioners to flee the country? Why? It speaks to the rotten presidential elections we always seem to have in Kenya. That's really what it is. There is no other way of looking at it. But a very disturbing question lingers. We know that the former IEBC Commissioner Irene Cherop Masit had already been disgraced by the Ruto administration. We were told that she's not patriotic, that her and the other four Cherera were trying to frustrate somebody who had genuinely won the presidency from ascending to the presidency, by claiming the results were not real, and yet the results were real. And so with that kind of narrative, having already been sold to the world successfully, why was Masit still a threat? That is a question. Surely, nothing she would have said would have been credible. After what the government did to her, nothing she would have said would have been credible. The world would not have believed it, because the world was already told that she was not credible, that she tried to frustrate the real results of an election. Of course, you and I know that the story was very different from that. But the truth is, this is the narrative that has been sold to the world. So under normal circumstances, she would be a zero threat. Kwisha maneno. Nothing she can ever say would hold water. So why? Kwa nini watu waliendelea kutisha maisha yake? Why? One of the few possible answers is that she was assisting others to get to the bottom of what really happened in our presidential elections last August. And maybe she had a link to the famed, still anonymous, whistleblower who gave us the real presidential election results. It is also possible that she may have been assisting others to get even more information. Okay? That would explain the threats. And that would explain the reason why she had to flee the country. And it should be obvious, even her leaving the country, she got assistance from some very significant people in the country called Kenya. Because think about it, the government already knows who she is. And to leave the country, you have to go to the airport. And when you go to the airport, all the major government departments are there. Before somebody like that is cleared to get onto an aircraft, it would be impossible for her to leave through the official channels. And therefore, the most high likelihood is that she drove to one of our neighboring countries and then took a flight from there, which is precisely what her predecessor, Rosalyn Akombe, did. It is also the same thing that Rosalyn Akombe's brother did to flee the country. In case you've forgotten, Rosalyn Akombe's brother also fled Kenya. And to this day, remains in exile, together with his sister. That should be very conclusive to the world that there's something very wrong with Kenyan presidential elections. That should be very conclusive evidence to the world that our elections last August could not have been credible. Because when Mwai Kibaki won the presidency in 2002, in the only free and fair presidential elections we've ever had, very sad but true, after those elections, nobody was threatened. We didn't hear of anybody fleeing the country. Still, in all this very sad news, it is heartwarming to realize that Irene Cherop Masit has guaranteed her place in history. When the history of our country is written in the years and decades to come, we will be told that a brave Kenyan lady stood her ground to the last minute and was forced to flee the country, and was even forced to flee the country. This is a gallant, great, patriotic Kenyan. Let us take off our hats to this superwoman, Irene Cherop Masit, especially because she ignored her tribe and put the motherland, her country Kenya, first, well beyond her own tribe. Asante sana. Mungu akubariki na kuongezee. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.